and we are in half the story number 4, and we're continuing with general rules that allow you to say half a verse and not a full verse. And let's go to Rav Reuven Margaliot, part of the family of the Mata Ephraim and whatnot. Rav Reuven Margaliot basically says the following rule. You can't start a pasuk and not finish it. Aval lahatchil mutar gam be'emtza pasuk. But if you start it from the middle of the pasuk, then it's not a problem. And indeed, if you look at some of the examples, this solves the problem. For example, on Friday night, the Ramah says to start with Yom HaShishi, that's the middle of the pasuk. There's no problem. You don't have to finish the pasuk from the beginning, namely what's behind it. But if you start from the beginning, by Yechulu, then you have to finish the whole pasuk as we do. Same thing Shabbos morning. We say, Al Kein Beirach Hashem et Yom HaShabbat Vayikacheu. That's the middle of the pasuk. No problem. But if you started from the beginning, then of course you have to finish. Answer number 2 is the Ben Ish Chai. That since Friday night, we only say 2 words, Yom HaShishi. It's not a problem. 2 words is not a problem. And he brings a proof from the fact that when you write a Sefer Torah, you're supposed to have the lines written in the Torah. We make it with a little knife, not black lines, but rather with a little knife. That's called sirtut. But you don't have to make a sirtut if it's only 2 letters, and therefore, says the Ben Ish Chai, if you only say Yom HaShishi, it's not a problem. Obviously, that only solves that issue. It doesn't solve all the rest of the examples that we saw. Answer number 3, the etnachta. Anyone that knows Trup knows that an etnachta is the way we divide up a pasuk. Namely, we have 2 kinds of ta'amim, ta'amei hamikra, Trup. Some of them are what we call ta'amim mafsikim, namely they divide the pasuk. You're supposed to pause a little bit or a lot, and etnachta is a lot. Zakef katon is a little bit, but a pause it is. And some of them are ta'amim mechabrim. Actually, you shouldn't pause. You should connect it to the next word. Comes along the Shut Yachanu Boaz. This is the Duran family, if you heard of the Tashbates, and says, we had a big problem with all these half psukim until my son came up with the following theory. If there is an etnachta or a zakef katon in that pasuk, then it's no problem to start from there. And indeed, he gives an example. The Chazan says, after the Kriyat Shema of Shachris and Ma'ariv, Hashem Elokeichem Emet, middle of a pasuk. But that's exactly right after an etnachta. If you remember the pasuk, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, Asher Hotzeti Etchem Me'eretz Mitzrayim Liot Lachem Le'Elohim, there's an etnachta, and then you say, Ani Hashem Elokeichem Emet. So therefore, if you start from those words, from after the etnachta, it's not a problem. And it solves many of the issues that we brought up, such as Shabbos morning. Al Kain is after an etnachta. And indeed, the Magen Giborim, which is a joint effort between 2 rabbis, a joint effort between Rav Mordechai Ettinger, 1804 to 1863, together with Rav Shaul Natanzon, the famous Shaul Meishiv. They wrote a book together called Magen Giborim on the Shulchan Aruch. They quote this and they say, this is amazing. This solves a lot of our problems. And the Ben Ish Chai came along and said this solves endless problems, including the issue of the Yud Gimel Midot, the 13 attributes of mercy, is a problem. But if you stop at V'chata'ah, then that an etnachta. So you don't have to say the full pasuk. You could say Hashem Hashem Karachum Mechanun Erech Hapayim Rav Chesed V'Mednos Chesed Lavheim L'Tzel Moshe V'Chata'ah. So ultimately, this is a very nice theory of the Shut Yachinu Boaz. However, the Chasam Sofer says it makes no sense to me, and he says very simply, our whole series started with the Gemara in Masechet Megillah that talks about the laning of Rosh Chodesh, and in the laning of Rosh Chodesh there was a proposition of Shmuel saying divide the pasuk. Stop the aliyah in the middle of the pasuk. And the Gemara says, no, you can't stop in the middle of a pasuk. Well, in the middle of a pasuk there's an etnachta. So what's the big deal? The pasuk would be, Va'amarta lahem, Ze ha'isheh asher takrivu la'Hashem. There's an etnachta. That's exactly what Shmuel proposed, and that's exactly what the Gemara says, no, because you have to finish the pasuk. So how can you come up with this theory that if there's an etnachta, it's okay if the whole Gemara started with, that's exactly a pasuk with an etnachta, and that's exactly our problem. So therefore, the Chasam Sofer does not accept this theory whatsoever. Next answer, the Gra. comes along and says something that I admit I don't completely understand, but I will just say it the way he says it. And that is that since we start from Yom HaShishi, צריך להפסיק מעט בין יום השישי לוויחולו כדי להכיר שאינו פסוק אחד, שאין רצאים לעשות משני פסוקים פסוק אחד. Number one, you have to say Yom HaShishi and then stop and they say Vayachulu because they're two different psukim. And then he adds, Omrim belachash vayer vayivoker kedei lo nechalok pasuk l'shnayim dechol psuka delo paskin on Moshe Rabbeinu, etc. And rule number two is that you say it quietly. So if you say it quietly, then, says the Gra, it's okay to say half a pasuk. I don't completely understand it. If you say it quietly, you say it out loud, but that's what the Gra says. The Tzitz Eliezer brings a Svat Emet that says that any time the Torah says the words lemor or va'amarta, then you could divide up psukim. He brings examples from the Haggadah. In the Haggadah, we say avadim ayinu lefaru b'mitzrayim. That's the middle of a pasuk. The pasuk doesn't start that way. Or when we answer the wise son, we say Mahei Dutva HaChukim, also in the middle of a pasuk. But since in those two psukim it says the words Lemor va'amarta, namely you should say it, or you should say it over, it's okay. And then the Tzitz Eliezer brings his own answer, and he says the following, that ultimately if you say the pasuk but you change one little word, then it's okay. So since in the Haggadah we do invert words, for example, it says in the pasuk Avadim ayinu lefaro b'mitzrayim ve'yotzienu Hashem misham, and in the Haggadah it says ve'yoshem Hashem Elokeinu misham, says the Tzitz Eliezer, if you change the pasuk a little bit, you invert a bit, then it's no problem to quote half a pasuk. So as you can see, there's many answers given, all technical, from you're only starting in the middle to you are adding words, but at the end of the day, this remains an issue. Are there rabbis that said, listen, I don't need this at Herim, let's just say the full pasuk? The answer is yes. Stay tuned for next time.